Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Akwa Ibom State. It's a beautiful Monday morning, a great day to be alive and to rise and shine wherever you are. My name is Uyai Aneka, and it's a great delight to be here this morning. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
And I'm Francis Oyemeda. Glad to have you join us. So it's a new week. In as much as this week will usher in the very first ember month, September. I know the excitement is in the air. Some people are just not able to wait for September to kickstart, and of course the rest of the ember months to join the year being wrapped up. But a lot of us will still want the year to go a little bit slower.
I am telling
lots
you.
of things yet to be ticked off the box that we would love to get it off. But of course, life is what it is. Time is what it is, and you can't hold time. You can't, hold life back. But definitely, I know that the remaining 4 months is going to be a bumper ride. So, and this week, definitely, a lot of persons who may not have been able to tick off all the things they wanted to achieve for the month of August. Well, you still have 1, 2, 3 days left.
3 days left. I think the biggest concern is the fact that 2023 is already over, because I remember coming into 2023 and I had lots of plans. Ask me how many I've accomplished. Well,
Plenty.
There's been, some growth here and there. But at the end of I think I was having that conversation with my mom over the weekend, and she's like, the year is already over. Yes, please. The year is over, because once we get into September, October, November, and that's it. But we are grateful for the strides that we've been able to accomplish. And I think, another thing is the fact that a lot of people have had to deal with losses this year, whether they're financial losses, loss, friends, relatives, family members. It just feels like there's been a widespread, kind of feeling with loss. We just hope that, people can find the comfort and the healing that they need, and, just, press ahead. But it's very important that we stay afloat. And like you said, I think there's a balance in Nigeria that says that the day you wake up is your morning. So, if we wake up now and decide to still hit on straight with the things that we have on our table, our goals for the year, we'll still be able to accomplish one or two. Consistency is the name of the game, actually. Start today, and before long, you'll be able to achieve one or two things. Tick off just some list on your bucket. But of course, rise and shine, we are here this week again to talk Nigeria. Let's see how we can set the agenda for the rest of the country and have conversations around very serious topical issues, from the presidency to the Senate to the economy, everything that matters to Nigerians. And one way that you can be a part of this conversation, and that's very, very important to us, is for you to follow us and make your contribution across all the social media platforms. Please take advantage of our social media handles, all of which you can find on our social media platforms, spectrumtv.ng. Like I said last week, the vision here is that, the good news here rather is that on www.spectrumtv.ng you can watch, Spectrum Television real time, any time of today. Whatever is going on our screens are permanently streamed on our website. So if you hop onto YouTube, and we are not live at the moment, every other thing is live on our website. So please take advantage of that. We still have a phone line, so you can feel free to send us WhatsApp messages and contributions on the show. But this is Monday morning, the fresh business week, and a fresh day to, make that money come in, make the right policies in terms of the Senate and all of those that are involved. Let's see what's happening in Nigeria. Quick flash news. Last year, the floods were really serious, and we had a number of states that were taking over. One of the strongest conversations during that flood was the fact that, the Cameroon Dam had to be opened. They opened the Cameroon Dam. They didn't open it. Why should they open it without conversing with Nigeria and all that neighboring countries? But yet now there is a press release talking about the need to evacuate and open up the Cameroon Dam. Now the release of huge volumes of water from the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon has made states along the path of the river Benue in Nigeria brace up for possible flood disasters in their various domains. Okay, so this has already been opened up. Now, to prevent death and other disasters associated with floods, states that are likely to be affected have asked residents of the flood-prone areas to vacate such communities. Of course, now the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, said no fewer than 11 states, including Adamawa, Taraba, Benue, Nasarawa, Kogi, Anambra, Edo, Delta, Bayelsa, Rivers, and Cross River, are likely to feel the negative impact of the opening of the dam. So it's a given now that that dam, has been opened up. We're also looking at that residents should leave those areas to avoid impacts on human lives and valuable assets. So this is a call out to all of the states that have just been numbered. Please make sure that you find out from NEMA within your state if your area is prone to be hit by the flood of the opening of that dam. We also see that Cameroon had informed the federal government that it would soon open the Lacto Dam. Now, the director of the African Affairs, Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Omar Salisu, said in a letter dated August 21st, 2023, that the ministry received a note from the High Commission of Cameroon as regards the opening of the dam. If you remember very closely, also at the beginning of this year, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency had sent out warnings that the floods to be experienced this year will be worse than that of last year. We don't know if we have experienced the miracle or if we can, just rest our guard for now, because this is August. The rains have stopped. How much more months do we have for rains to come on very intensely? Hopefully, we will not have such a great impact. But this is flash news. Deserves all the attention we can get.
Well, definitely, the disaster that we've experienced in Nigeria, the loss of lives, the worth of properties that were being destroyed as a result of flood last year, is definitely something that should have placed the federal government at their toes to be proactive in the measures to be taken. And we know that almost from the beginning of this year, we saw the NEMA issuing different warnings. Like 2 months ago, Akwa Ibom was mentioned as one of the states, likely to be hit by flood. I think Upenekan was mentioned. And then these warnings have been coming consistently. I think just about 2 weeks ago, we saw the governor of Bayelsa State calling on the federal government to take proactive measures to ensure that his own state is not hit again by flood, considering the level of damage that happened the last year. Last year it was a question of, did Penny Roman actually inform Nigeria? Did they not inform Nigeria? We saw all of those going back and forth between the Cameroonian government and Nigeria, and of course the different comments that came out. But this time around, we're being told ahead of time that the dam is going to be open, which is more or less like giving us heads up. So if your community falls within the range of the possible areas to be hit by the water, what do? Proactive measures now come in. Now, the very big questions that we'll have to ask the federal government: are the federal government ready? Is NEMA ready for the possible, incidences of flood that might come? Because no matter how prepared we are, you never can tell the extent of which this water would come, because it's like literally every time the dam is open, there are different effect. The level of water that is going to come, and coupled with the quantity of rain that we've had this year, nobody can actually preempt in exact form, no matter how much the Nigerian meteorological services are able to give projections as to what the effect of the dam being open might be. So it calls for proactive steps on the part of government at the federal level. It calls for proactive steps on the part of the state governors themselves. It calls for readiness of NEMA and other relevant government agencies to stand ready for any possibility in the eventuality that something actually happens. Yes, we might prepare the people, evacuate the people away from the very serious flood-prone areas. But then, what happens in the event that the water gets to places that we didn't anticipate it might get to? How prepared are we as a country? How prepared are we as a state? How prepared are the government agencies to actually address this? But one beautiful thing about this is, if the government of Nigeria actually wants to solve these challenges at this point in time, they have the information, they have enough time to prepare. And so this would now put Nigerians in a place to know whether or not the government is actually, serious when they get information, and if they actually use information. So this time around, the government is not going to have the excuse that, the Cameroonian did not tell us they were about to open the dam. We didn't see the opening of the dam coming. We didn't foresee the repercussion effect of the dam being open on Nigerian communities. Now they have the information. Let's see how they're going to act with the information.
Of course, we see the fact that the Lagdo Dam is located about 50 kilometers south of the city of Gara on the Benue River. Of course, when these waters are released like this, there's going to be lots and lots of swamping and flooding in some states in Nigeria. Of course, we are a border nation. So it's very imperative that everyone begins to more like follow the guidelines that have been released by NEMA in all of these states. I would like to just mention the names of the states again. We have Edo, we have Adamawa, we have Bayelsa State, we have Rivers, we have Anambra, there is Benue State, there is Taraba, there is Nasarawa, there is Kogi, and Cross River also have been highlighted. So, as expected, the different leadership of this different states should be proactive at the moment so that we can cut down on the loss of lives and property. Of course, that's why this warning has been given. And as we can see, Nigeria has attested to the fact that the Cameroon government had sent them, a letter of, what will I call it, warning now, but of course they were informed duly about the opening of the dam. Let's move to a very next flash news this morning. Of course, there's still a lot of activities happening with regards to crude oil in the country, whether we're talking about drilling, the production process and all of that. We've continued to see how oil theft has been ranked as a major issue in the country. But here now we see the Nigerian Navy vow to arrest fleeing owners of abandoned vessels. And there's also a report that abandoned vessels on our sea, is causing a lot of problem. But the Nigerian Navy insisted that a vessel, MV Cecilia, set ablaze by its operatives in Rivers State recently, was involved in oil theft, okay? But we see them vow to fish out, arrest and prosecute fleeing owners of abandoned sea-going vessels arrested for alleged illegal oil bunkering activities. Okay, this is news. Well, it sits on one end. We want to see arrest and prosecution being made, but we do not want to see vessels laden with crude oil being destroyed on our waterways anymore.
Well, you've first and foremost, I don't know what the Nigerian military are doing, what the Nigerian navies are doing. You've destroyed the evidence, and now you want to go after the alleged culprits. What are you going to use to pin on him that he's responsible for this? When you wipe out the evidence, you wipe out the possibility of getting anybody. Yes, you might arrest the persons, but what evidence are you going to use against them in court to show that they are the ones who have been involved in these? Because first and foremost, you've not caught them on the site of the incident. There are no pictorial evidence, no video evidence for you to say, okay, they have been linked. So once you destroy the key evidence that would have allowed you to nail these guys down, you've removed every other obstacles that would have been used by the government to actually say, okay, these are the people, and then of course the law would take its course. So first and foremost, we appreciate the fact that the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian military are, seem to be on top of the situation with oil theft and all of that. But the conversation as far as Nigerians are concerned will still go down to the basic things. Why are we burning vessels loaded with crude oil? Last week, the tweet of Twitter, when we saw the over 360 or 350,000 liters of crude oil that was burnt away by the Nigerian Navy, the same reaction was everywhere. Why do we keep complaining in Nigeria that we are yet to meet with the production quota on a month-on-month basis? But yet, every day, the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian Air Force are destroying crude oil. So it seems that we are just not ready to take lessons. We're not ready to take proactive measures. We're not ready to make the changes that is required for us to, turn the tides around, change the narrative in the interest of the Nigerian government, the Nigerian people, in the interest of growing our own revenue. Because as long as you keep destroying evidences, you keep giving these guys the perfect opportunity to go scot-free. And the more they go scot-free, for crying out loud, this might just be one or two of their hideouts of their operational base that you are destroying. What happens to the rest of the operational base that you've not had access to, you have no information, is already in existence? So the Nigerian Navy needs to do a lot more in terms of intelligence gathering, a lot more in terms of apprehension. Yes, we want to see arrest, but beyond the arrest, let's get to see evidences. Let's get to see the oil that you say are being stolen, being transformed or being utilized in the interest of Nigerians. Until we get to that point, nobody in Nigeria is going to give the Nigerian Armed Forces the accolades that, oh, they're doing well. Because everybody, the conversation will still be that the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Navy, all they're attempting to do is to cover up the top brass within the ranks and files of the military. And until they clear that doubt on the minds of Nigerians by stopping the destruction of vessels loaded with crude oil, until they follow the directive of the National Assembly that had clearly stated and directed the Nigerian military, do not stop burning crude oil, stop burning vessels loaded with crude oil. Arrest the criminals, yes. Arrest the illegal refiners, yes. But please, let the crude oil be maintained. Let the crude oil be saved. Let the crude oil be returned to the coffers of the government, because it belongs to Nigeria. And beyond that, we're still not taking, it seems Nigeria is not even ready to learn, because with all that is happening abroad, with the heat wave and the scorching of the atmosphere, we are still causing more damage. I would always say, I hate to be seen as a prophet of doom, but you see, these little things that the government seems to pay little attention to. Today is 3,000, tomorrow is 1 million, the next day is 300 and something thousand. The fuel keeps going into our waters. The water is being destroyed. It gets into the environment. It gets into the land. It gets into the air. People are drinking water from those. In this country, there are still people who are drinking from river waters.
Yeah.
So the health of the people, the health of the environment, the health of the aquatic life is being threatened. So until we get to taking those things very serious, nobody will give credit to the Nigerian Armed Forces for whatever job they're doing against oil theft.
There's these issues are really serious. I think it was over the weekend. I'm beginning to see a lot of Nigerians being sunburned. Like before now, it was the conversation of people in the Western world sunburn and all of that. I saw someone over the weekend, and I'm like, what's happening to your skin? Sunburn. And I'm like, is it this bad now? Because we've been having that conversation. I keep reiterating what the United Nations boss was saying. He says, the climate is no longer just heated up, it is boiling. We are sitting on a boiling earth right now, and where's that going to leave us? And then we are having forward-thinking nations looking for how to stabilize things. Nigeria is still, heating up their own climate. But, there is a back and forth also with regards to all these oil thefts and destruction of vessels. We see that Chief Jasper Okor, who is said to be the managing director of Soldiers Limited, the company managing the MV Cecilia vessel that was said to have been caught aboard on the sea with about 300, with an alert 250,000 quantity of petroleum products. Of course, we saw him deny culpability in any illicit oil deal. Now, Chief Okor actually, released a press statement saying that contrary to the claims of the Nigerian Navy, he said the destroyed vessel was a boat at work, but an aluminium high-speed crew facility, as clearly stated in the NIMASA document. Now, he said that particular vessel is actually 45,000 liters as opposed to the 350,000 liters as alleged by the Nigerian Army. It takes us back to the conversation you just had about, proper investigation about these issues. Is it just that, we saw a vessel, let's assume what it is? Now, the man is alleging that the tank was worth 45,000 liters, not 350,000 liters, as alleged by the Navy. Now, he also says that it was surprising to see that within a week of arrest, that particular vessel was destroyed without investigation. Now, this is the managing director of Soldiers calling out, the Nigerian Navy. And I think something else that is troubling here is the fact that, according to, Chief Okor, he's saying that the vessel had been cleared by and checked by the Navy 2 months before this incident had happened. Yes, it has not been in use for the past 2 years, but it has been used as a storage facility. So now, like we're talking about arresting people that are culpable and all of that, we now begin to see a back and forth. Oh, but you were at our facility just 2 months ago to check out this particular vessel. How then are you saying that, it is involved in illegal activities and setting it ablaze, on the waters? So these are the, conversations that we're beginning to have. Of course, the Nigerian Navy has also come out to respond to that particular allegation by the said director. So we can already see where this is going.
The Nigerian Navy is calling these unfounded allegations by the alleged owner of the merchant vessel Cecilia. Why are they not arresting him if he's not saying the right thing?
Mm.
Because the Nigerian Navy, we know, the armed forces, we know, who wouldn't take no nonsense from nobody when they know that you're guilty. So why are we not seeing arrest? Why are we seeing a counter, press statement from the Nigerian Navy? So it goes to tell a lot is happening that Nigeria, just like the recent expose at the Senate that Nigerians was taken by a wild storm, literally. There are a lot of things that are happening. The Nigerian people might not have in clear picture, in black and white, what is happening within the oil sector. But let the Nigerian Navy, the armed forces of Nigeria, the Air Force, not forget in a hurry that during the electioneering period, His Excellency Peter Obi said something that up until now, nobody in government has been able to counter. That as far as oil theft in Nigeria is concerned, of course we know it's not candy now. It's not sweet that you just walk into a supermarket and you pick a small candy and put it in your pocket, go back outside and then begin to leak. These things takes a whole lot of strong syndicates to do it. So, and before the syndicates are able to do, you're talking about international waters. You're talking about territorial boundaries of Nigeria. You're talking about the Nigerian sovereignty itself that is being protected by these guys in the military. So before any of these actions happen, Nigerians know a common man, a motorcycle in the village cannot be an oil theft now. He cannot be involved in oil theft. So it takes people within the ranks and files of the top cadre of the society to actually be involved in this. Let's look at even drawing inference to the real vandalism and the real drugs that were caught recently. How many average Nigerians can be involved in such well-organized crime? Not many. So if we are ever going to solve this problem, if the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the National Assembly, are serious about curbing oil theft, they should look into the ranks and files of the government. Because that is where the fight begins. Once they're able to fight within the ranks and files of government and eliminate those who are involved in these activities, then the common men, the few commoners that are being used as pawns here and there to actually execute these deals, will be taken care of. Because once you arrest the sheep, the shepherd, the sheep will scatter. There is literally no way the sheep will not scatter, knowing that the shepherd that stood as a shield to their activities has been taken off. So for the Nigerian government to be able to fight the corruption within the oil sector, the president thankfully has made himself in charge of the petroleum sector. It is time for him to take action. Let's see what modalities the president bringing into play to make sure that the revenue losses, the leakages within the oil sector is blocked on all corners. And so we can now say, okay, Nigeria is able to meet its quota. The problem of oil theft has been reduced to the barest minimum. We are no longer seeing a Nigerian Navy, Air Force, bumping oil or alleged stolen crude oil, or vessels alleged to be loading with crude oil. When we get to that point, then Nigerians will know that the military is transparent, the military is honest, the military is straightforward in its dealing with Nigeria. They have the interest of the Nigerian people. And of course, the government is also transparent and they have the interest of the people at heart. Then we can see that, we are able to meet a quota, the revenue is coming in, and to a large extent, it will help prevent, the spate of borrowing by the Nigerian government.
Still talking about, just leaving on the spate of borrowing, we also see the fact that the Nigerian Navy has alleged that abandoned vessels on the sea are causing, making the waterways unsafe. Now they're calling out a lot of issues. Now, also the cost the nation has to, lose in terms of having those abandoned vessels on the waterways without being tended to by any agency. We are looking at the fact that it constitutes serious national security problems, one, and then the problems here is either those vessels on the water sink alongside the jetty or within the channel, constituting serious navigational hazards. So we are also seeing, as part of the whole race to clean out oil theft in the country, they're also pushing to make sure that vessels are not abandoned, because sometimes when a vessel is highlighted, to possibly be in the rig for illegal activities, sometimes when the minders of those kinds of vessels find out, they abandon those vessels and just leave it there. So they're saying this contributes to insecurity in the country, loss of money and revenue also for the country, and navigational hazards for others that would have been using those waterways. Now, this becomes part of the reasons why the International Maritime Organization in the past declared Nigeria's ports and waterways as the most unsafe ports in the region. And we'd have to know that one of the strongest ways to transport goods and services around the international market is the waterways. Once our waterways are unsafe or navigational issues are on the rise, then we are going to be losing out on revenue that can be generated from that particular sector. So there is a lot to look into, but at the end of the day, we'll just say there is no need for an haphazard job to be done by the Nigerian Navy at this time. Let investigations be thorough and let whoever is found culpable go in for it. But we cannot overemphasize the fact that vessels with crude oil cannot be destroyed at sea. Be responsible for natural resources. Do not forget the fact that sometimes we can run, not even a matter of sometimes, natural resources, the likes of crude, they can dry up, if we are not careful. We should reserve these things and find ways to refine them instead of being a wasteful economy, and still next thing we'll look for how to buy both the raw crude and the refined one from other parts of the country because we are destroying ours. But yeah, that's where we'll let that particular story to rest.
You know what? Yeah,
Okay.
just before we let that story rest, just going through the comment of the Nigerian Navy, I've seen something that is really, really disturbing again. Now, the Nigerian Navy is telling Nigerians that they conducted tests to ascertain that the alleged, liquid there was illegally refined crude oil, and then they invited the owners of the ship, and the owners of the ship didn't turn up.
And it was even refined. Not that it wasn't just
Exactly.
raw
So,
crude.
you invited the owners of the ship, and the owners of the ship didn't turn up. And you're telling Nigerians again that, as it is usually the practice in these scenarios with oil theft or with oil thieves, that once you invite them, they don't come over. For crying out loud, what happens to warrant of arrest in this country when you have probable cause to arrest and bring people in for questioning? What happened to obtaining a court order to mandate the owners of the ship to be present?
We easily move that around in petty issues.
So, when serious issues like this does actually requires the right measures of actions to be taken, we don't see it being taken. But when it's something that is insignificant and doesn't require the muzzles to be put in, as long as it interests somebody somewhere, those muzzles are being pressed. So this goes a long way to say there's something fishy underneath all of these operations that is being carried out.
Someone is not telling the full truth.
Exactly, because if you are telling us that you saw a probable cause to probe the situation, you've invited the owners of the vessels, they didn't show up. You get a court order, get the professionals there. I'm sure all of these gray areas would have been crossed out if you were able to get a court order, which of course any court in Nigeria will grant. You have a probable cause to investigate. You've invited peacefully. It's just like, the Nigerian police, okay, you're wanted for questioning. In as much as Nigeria said that is not applicable in Nigeria, it's only abroad that, police just invite you for questioning, you go answer the question, and if you're not found wanting, you're allowed to go. But then, that should be the standard procedure. If you're being invited, peacefully go. In the event that you refuse to go, it therefore means then a court order can be gotten to force you to appear before the armed forces. And then, of course, what needs to be done is done. So, all of this is still going back to the same gray area question. Let the Nigerian military, the armed forces, the Navy, the Air Force, clear the gray areas that is putting the doubt not on the alleged criminals of oil in Nigeria, but on the Nigerian armed forces, which is, of course, an arm of the executive. So if we get that done, then Nigerians will know that this is a fight between Nigerians and the government of Nigeria against the few criminal elements who do not want our growth and prosperity.
Lots of concerns right there, and we cannot. You can just seize the vessel instead of destroying. It's really troubling at this time, and to even think that the crude was not just raw crude but refined. We are talking about the fact that importers of petroleum products in the country are saying they cannot import because of that high cost of forex and this is already putting everybody at fingers crossed. It will, fuel start selling for as high as 700 naira. I mean, we are buying at 620 now in most places, so people are scared. And then you find whatever, whether it was 45 liters of crude or of refined petroleum products, or 350,000 liters of refined, but yet you have the impetus to destroy what you do not have, what a nation has not been able to produce. Why not confiscate it totally, like the people who were involved in that particular refining do not get a cent from it, but then you take it, circulate it in the country, let Nigerians be able to benefit from what you think was stolen from them. It just makes makes no sense. Absolutely. At the end of the day, sometimes, when people say common sense is not common at all, one would think that this is something that shouldn't even have you put a group of experts, brains of experts in the room to ask, oh, please, what should we do with this kind of situation? It should go without saying. It's troubling that these conversations are getting on the rise, and we do expect that the National Assembly will sit on that matter again and resolve it extensively with the forces that are involved with this particular activity. But let's move to food security conversations. Floods are coming, insecurity is still on the rise in certain parts of the country. Like we just heard about, the waterways. Some parts there are navigational issues, so we are not even able to import things from other parts of the world into the country as we should. Forex is also a very strong determinant factor right now with regards to importation or export, even at that. And we see the fact that where food is concerned, we see the government saying that they're going to make efforts. Rather, we see that government efforts are failing as food imports rises to 122%, and the deficit in that sector hits 4.9 trillion naira. Government efforts to mitigate food insecurity is failing as importation has risen to 122%. When importation has risen to 122%, how then are people going to survive? We see that despite the continuous government effort to shore up food production in Nigeria through various intervention programs, the country recorded food trade deficit worth 4.92 trillion naira between 2018 and 2022. Now, of course, we see that this data shows that Nigeria is not growing enough food for its populace, leaving the country with no option but to import. I mean, we have several issues that are contributing to the fact that Nigeria is not producing enough food. We know that the northern part of the country has been laden with all of the Boko Haram insurgency, Islamic insurgency, and the likes as far back, as 2018. Further away from that, and we've continued to see the fact that farmers cannot stay on their farmland. Sometimes farmer header clashes, they have planted, but farmer header clashes will come, these things will be destroyed. We also see that feed has steadily risen. Okay, we still have these kinds of problem. 121.7% increase in the value of imported foods within 5-year period, rising to 1.9 trillion and 857 billion in 2018. The numbers are alarming.
Well, the numbers will always be alarming. We know that even from January, the United Nations estimated that more than 25 million people in Nigeria could face food insecurity this year. That's about 47% increase from 17 million people who were already at risk of going hungry due to the ongoing insecurity. You're also talking about conflict. You're talking about the rise in food prices. All of those indices, combined together. Now, the worsening food, crisis in Nigeria is something that there's literally a year that we don't get to see this being mentioned. There's literally a year we don't get to see it highlighted. And that, of course, cuts across from children to adult to, all categories of, demographics of persons in Nigeria. And particularly, this still goes down to the vulnerable of the most vulnerable in Nigeria, talking about the poorest of the poor. But how are we going to remedy the situation? What are the possible solutions to remedy the situation? There have been talks and conversations about improving seedlings for farmers. There have been talks about ensuring we have a lot more people taking up farming. But of course, a lot more people are taking up farming. What are the modalities put in place? Because it's not okay for you to tell Nigerians to go back to farming, particularly within the high risk areas, without proffering solutions to the security problem. We know that majorly the North, has most of the most number of persons who are involved in agricultural produce, which of course also transport this. So where anything goes wrong in the North with the farmers, most of the other regions, especially those states who are not able to, provide for themselves and then even have enough to even also export to the nearest communities, are going to be in problem. I know that, for instance, in Akwa Ibom, we've had conversations about, diversifying into agriculture and having people take up agriculture. Even the Rice agenda and the present administration of Pastor Omar is still talking about agriculture. But how sustainable are the moves being put in place by government? Are we looking at, agriculture that is all ended up and wrapped up in beautiful policy statement, beautiful media statement, press briefings, without the right, background being laid for people to actually take up? Are we looking at agricultural practices that, people in politics are using to settle their supporters at the detriment of the people itself, at the detriment of actually being able to provide food? Of course, I think sometime last year we spoke with a farmer in Akwa Ibom, I think the Antia's farm thereabout, where of course we get to know that yes, in Akwa Ibom we can now grow tomato, we can grow watermelon, we can grow other vegetables that before now we didn't see it happening. So, but why don't we have people planting those vegetables, for instance? Why don't we have people planting those cereals, for instance, in larger scales? Is a big question that respective state this time around, it's not just a conversation that will live in the hands of people within the northern extraction or within the immediate belt. Is a conversation that every state, Nigeria is blessed with arable lands across boards, but the states needs to rise up to that responsibility of taking into consideration those things. I think you mentioned some of the places in Akwa Ibom, say for instance, that rice can be cultivated in large quantities.
Very large quantities.
Why are we not having that? It goes down to government policies, it goes down to support and investment in the sector, it goes down to making the opportunities available, because these large farms takes a lot. It takes money, it requires land space, and of course the average African continent or country or families, the small portions of land that are being subdivided. So it would take a whole lot for people to acquire large hectares of land and then plant, on a large scale.
Well, we also see that at varying with this particular time, we saw that food exports in the country also kind of went up, and the numbers still are good, 300 and so, but it just stands that at the ratio of export versus importation to feed the country, the numbers are not tallying. But then again, you'd wonder, why are we exporting so much when we do not even have enough to feed our country? Because I know that a country like the United States of America has food reserves. Grains are reserved, all kinds of things are reserved in terms of food. So if there were to be an emergency now, the country would have a reserve to fall back on. Does Nigeria have that kind of thing? It was in the dispensation of the former president Muhammadu Buhari, we talked about celebrating one phase of a rice pyramid, and it was just fallacy to think that people will be minders of the system. They'll go and do photo ops on things that are crucial to the sustenance of a nation, but parties will collaborate and play photo ops, and everybody will clap for a person when nothing has been done. After that particular rice pyramid was flagged up by the former president, what is the conversation around that rice pyramid? What is the ratio of production of rice? Is that pyramid still ranking? Are they still heaping rice? What exactly? So there's a lot of falsehood involved in the whole system, and it is a major problem. Food security is a real thing. Of course, the United Nations has also highlighted Nigeria to be worst hit by some of the effects of the Russia and Ukraine war also, because exports and other foods are finding it difficult to be exported out of Ukraine, and that's a major issue. But without depending on the international community, how can we serve ourselves better with regards to, food? And then when we are talking food security, it goes beyond just the fact that insecurity has affected farming. There is a fact that seeds are not readily available, fertilizers, are not readily available for, the farmers. When you want us to farm large scale, do we have the kind of infrastructure and machines that will push that, and give us an economic advantage? The conversation will be no. Yes, have we had things like the Anchor Borrower Scheme and different initiatives that were set up by the federal government to mitigate all of these needs for the farmers? Yes, they have been. But you know that greed and siphoning of public funds is something that goes pari passu with every office in this country. So sometimes you see these loans and initiatives being given to people that are not even planting a seedling of what now? Maize.
Well, it's still going to be a problem. It's still going to be a problem. Since Nigerian government and the minders of the system believe that everything is about Photoshop, it's about smiling before the camera, it's about finding new measures to trick Nigerians, and of course finding new ways to make Nigerians believe things are happening when in reality it's not actually happening. I mean, the previous administration was just a far cry from what Nigerians expected and anticipated. We are yet to forget. And of course, one of the conversations still very much going with Festus Keyamo, now the Minister of Aviation, is for the national carrier, for us to know what exactly happened with the national carrier. But those were just, one of the few instances that Nigerians were left to wonder what exactly are politicians, what exactly are leaders, what exactly the people we have entrusted with the responsibility to lead us will actually, actually doing when entrusted with public positions. But we do hope that with this present administration, Nigeria had, declared food scarcity emergency, or food security emergency, or emergency in the food sector. We do like to see this being backed up. We know that I think 2 weeks ago, thereabout, the president had issued a directive that seedlings be also be given out to farmers as part of the palliative.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to see how this play out. It's not just about the seedlings. It's not just about the palliative, but also preferring other solutions. Because if the farmers plant the seedlings, the seedling grows, and then the cattle are eating up the seedlings, we wouldn't have food. If we have insecurity still rampaging different states of the federation, we still wouldn't have food. Until we address those things, I mean, you can give the farmers, they can plant, but when all of these indices are still there, it's still going to go back to the same thing. So
we're also looking at the kinds of collaborations that we're going to be having between the ministries of agriculture, whether as in the senior one or the Ministry of State for Agriculture. We're also going to see the collaboration that will be done with the Ministry of Humanitarian and Poverty Alleviation, as headed by Dr. Betta Aidu. Let's see how we're going to be able to collaborate within these two ministries and every other one that can come together to make sure that we move out of the red zone that we are with regards to food security in the country. But we're going to take our very last swipe on our major stories this morning. We see a fact that the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of the Nigeria Police Force, for recruitment of constables. Now that conversation says Supreme Court confirms PSC as statutory body responsible for conscription into the force. Of course, there's been this back and forth between the Nigeria Police Force and the PSC as to who is responsible for recruitment into the Nigeria Police Force. I remember that when Eweto Kun came on board, he and the PSC boss came together and had a tete-a-tete just to be able to look at how they are going to resolve those issues, and they had agreed at the time that a common board was going to be set up with members both from the PSC and the Nigeria Police Force put together to take care of proceedings with regards to recruitment. But it looks like there's still been some issues brewing in that particular regard. We see the Police Service Commission saying that the Supreme Court has ruled in its favor to solely take the responsibility of recruiting constables into the Nigeria Police Force. We also see the fact that the PSC and the NPF engaged in a fierce legal battle on who should be responsible for the recruitment of police constables following the approval by former President Muhammadu Buhari to recruit 10,000 constables each year for 6 years. Of course, we also see the fact that on July 11, 2023, the Apex Court in the land decided and laid to rest the contentious issue and controversy between the Commission and the police. However, we still see the fact that certified true copy of the said judgment couldn't provide it when, we couldn't see that particular document being made available. But we see that in the judgment, the Supreme Court unequivocally pronounced the Commission as an agency statutorily mandated to recruit constables into the force. How is this going to settle? Are we still going to see this legal battle continue, or everyone is just going to sheath their sword and allow the PSC to do the recruitment?
Well, if we get to see these government agents not actually always fighting for supremacy, not fighting for authority, not fighting for who is in charge, we'll get to understand that the government of the land is actually serious, because every government agency is supposed to be set up with, guidelines, modalities, its functions being clearly stated out. And in the event that there's a clash of interest between one government agency and the other, we should have been able to go back to the drawing board and then know where to take out and what to take out and where to add and where to subtract for the government agencies to actually be able to coexist together while doing the jobs. But all of this still go back to the question of, racketeering in terms of employment within the government coffers. You're talking about people clamoring for the rights to be the ones to recruit because there's a slot. And slot comes with payment on the part of Nigerians, and it comes with making extra money other than just, working for the Nigerian civil service or working for the Nigerian government. So this is one of the reasons why you see people struggling for authority, struggling for supremacy, struggling for particular government offices and rights and privileges, until we get to a point where we have a government agencies being set up with the right mandate, being set up with well lined out responsibilities and functions, duties and obligations. We will still continue to have government agencies at loggerhead with each other and then finally heading to the court. Of course, this is also another constitutional crisis, because the Nigerian government it just so show that we are setting up agencies, we are setting up ministries and departments without clear court mandate given by the Constitution.
Overlapping roles and responsibilities, for that matter. Two agencies named to be doing the same thing. You're definitely going to be having these kinds of issues. So we need to see, their profiles being streamlined. Let the Nigeria Police Force know that this is your duty and this is the PSC. But like the spokesperson for the PSC had said, like I said earlier, when Ibetokun came on board, there was a conversation to find more like an out of court and amicable way to end all of this fracas that has been going on. And I agreed at the time was the fact that they were going to have members from the two sects on the table. But now that the Supreme Court has given this verdict, is this going to upturn what the leadership of these two sects were going to do? It's going to be within the purview of the leadership of PSC and the Nigeria Police Force to either just take the Supreme Court judgment or put in their appeal as to how they want to go about it going forward, if it will work in the best interest of both commissions.
Well, there's no way. If the Police Service Commission works for the Nigerian Police Force, they work hand in hand with the Nigerian Police Force. So issues of recruitment should be a joint thing. It shouldn't be the exclusive right of one. We can just go ahead and merge the two commissions into one. The Nigerian Police Force cum the Nigerian Police Commission. And then maybe you could have a resetting of the agenda of the Nigerian Police Service Commission and, of course, the Nigerian Police Force. But then, it's still left in the leadership of Solomon Arase, Dr. Solomon Arase, and, of course, talking about the Acting Inspector General of Police, Egbetokun, is left for them both to get to know whether or not they want to come together, find a common ground to work together in the interest of the police force, or they want to head back to court. Because when it comes to court, there's always the tendency of appealing and appealing and reappealing and relaunching the case. But we'll take a short pause here and head out to the news brief decks where Mary Joseph is standing by to take us round latest happening around the world. Stay with us, Rise and Shine will continue after this time out.
Heads of state and government, Secretary General, distinguished delegates,
Disasters being Lagos Nigerian today as efforts to recover from the lapse in still counting.
heads of state and government, Secretary General, distinguished delegates,
Disasters being Lagos Nigerian today as efforts to recover from the lapse in still counting.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum. Live from Uyo, I am Mary Joseph. We begin the news brief with a report that the Senate, through its Committee on Finance, has said that the Nigeria citizens could generate about $3 billion from solid minerals. The chairman of the Finance Committee, Senator Sani Musa, in a statement, said the informal sector, particularly the mining industry, is a hidden gem in the nation's revenue potential, adding that the Senate Finance Committee will seriously look at the informal sector, which constitutes about 80% of the Nigerian economy, adding that the committee will look into empowering the informal sector with the spotlight on mining. Away from that, a former vice president and presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the 2023 election, Atiku Abubakar, has again queried the controversy trailing the academic history of President Bola Tinubu. Atiku, who is currently praying a United States of American court to prevail on the Chicago State University to clarify the inconsistency in the certificates it issued to President Tinubu, said unless a clarification is made, it is difficult, if not impossible, for the public to understand the academic journey of the former Lagos State Governor. Meanwhile, the military has vowed to go all out against bandits and insurgents who are displaying signs of desperation, a stance attributed to the increasing might of the armed forces of Nigeria, the Nigerian peace advocate said. Addressing journalists, the Secretary of NBA, Bernard Udru, urged Nigerians to maintain their unwavering support and offer prayers for the armed forces while commending the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Gwabin Musa, and his valiant troops for their support to safeguard the country. We then move to Africa, where Libya's Prime Minister has suspended his foreign minister after she met informally with her Israeli counterparts. Libya does not recognize Israel as Tripoli backs the Palestinian cause, and the meeting has sparked protests. Israel's Eli Cohen described the meeting with Najah al-Magoush as a historic first step in establishing relations. Reports say Israel is trying to build closer ties with more Arab and Muslim-majority countries such as oil-rich Libya. However, Libya's Presidential Council, which represents its 3 provinces, said it was illegal to normalize relations with Israel. And finally, in sports, Novak Djokovic has launched his quest for a 24th Grand Slam singles title on Monday as the US Open gets underway, with the Serb needing only a first-round victory to reclaim the world's #1 ranking. The 36-year-old Serbian star makes a long-awaited return to the USDA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center after missing the 2022 tournament due to his refusal to get vaccinated. We'll have details of this and many more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's go back to Rising Channel, where we have Francis and Uyai on standby to have a wonderful morning.
distinguished delegates,
Disasters being Lagos Nigerian today as efforts to recover from the lapse in still.
heads of state and government, Secretary General, distinguished delegates,
Disasters being Lagos Nigerian today as efforts to recover from the lapse in still counting.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people. But there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Rise and Shine, and we're coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Of course, it's Monday morning, and we're talking Nigeria, looking at really serious issues happening around the country, and how can we move forward as a nation. Mary Joseph just brought us tidbits of global news and some of the conversations we've had so far on Rise and Shine this morning. We looked at the fact that the Lacdo Dam in Cameroon has been opened up, and some states in Nigeria have been highlighted and asked to evacuate to prevent deaths. Of course, the federal government has warned these flood-prone areas. You can go back into our full conversation so that you can hear the states that were highlighted. We also had a conversation this morning looking at oil theft, the fact that the Nigerian Navy has vowed to arrest fleeing owners of abandoned vessels on our seas. Of course, they've also said that these abandoned vessels are adding to insecurity in the country. We also look at the fact that the government's effort is failing as food imports has risen to 122%, and we have hit a deficit of 4.9 trillion naira. Food insecurity is a real thing in Nigeria at the moment. You would like to catch up on the conversation and some of the solutions, that were thrown open at this time. Part of the stories we also saw, the Supreme Court has confirmed that the police commission is to be the statutory agency responsible for recruiting constables into the Nigeria Police Force. Of course, this particular, the PSC and the NPF have been in an embroiled battle in the law court trying to ascertain who exactly should be laden with that activity. These and more are some of the conversations we've had so far in Rise and Shine. To catch up on all that, follow us across all social media platforms at spectrumtv.ng. At this point, we're still going to look at some serious, issues on the front burner this morning. This particular one caught my attention, Francis. Speaking about maintaining the national image of the country, we had the Nigerian ambassador to the United States call the attention of Nigerians, asking that we make sure we have conversations that represents Nigeria in good light.
Well, the ambassador is doing a great job.
It's like where you are towing, it's like your head, you want to give a slam, but you just started by saying, okay.
No, but seriously, okay. I mean, the ambassador is doing a great job, asking Nigerians abroad to, paint a positive image, do things that will paint the image of Nigeria in the right direction, trying so much to draw attention to the already battered image that needs so much cleaning up. So he's taking a step in the right direction. But again, will the activities of Nigerians alone in diaspora be able to clean up the image of Nigerians when the government back home is not ready to clean up that image? It goes beyond the ability of Nigerians. It goes beyond the narrative painted or experienced or showcased by Nigerians. It goes beyond rather how much of good conduct Nigerians outside the shores of Nigeria are able to put forward. If all the Nigerians outside the shores of Nigeria are able to live a good life, paint the positive image, push the right directive, which of course many of them are doing already, and then you come back to Nigeria, the issue of corruption, the issue of bribery, the issue of government officials being fingered in one corrupt practices or the other, the issue of poor governance, the issue of insecurity, the issue of fraud and other criminal activities being rampant in the nation. Is it going to change the narrative? The answer is absolutely no. So yes, you can have Nigerians doing their bit of contributing to painting the right image for the Nigerian society. You can have Nigerians doing everything within their power to also move away from criminal activities abroad. But without us having a collaborative effort, without us having a concurring environment at the national level, where we have the government of the day also prioritize key areas that has put Nigeria in the bad light as far as international community is concerned, this is going to be counterproductive. The ambassador, the envoy is really doing a great job starting off with those conversations. I mean, if for anything, it's going to go a long way in also reminding Nigerians who are not doing the right thing, Nigerians who are involved in one illegal act or the other to also, draw themselves back to order, to consciousness, to know that yes, there is a need for us to move away from this. Conversations that we have for most of the guys who are outside, who gets extremely scrutinized when they're going through one platform or the other because they are Nigerians. The moment they get to hear you're Nigerian, it's like literally everybody, throws away every other focus, and then you become the focus and the center of attraction until you're being screened. And you're being screened like more than every other person. It's embarrassing to see those scenarios played out. So these guys who are clean would definitely want to, be respected, not because of the indices surrounding the national identity. And so regardless of who you are, once they know you are a Nigerian, extra care is being taken in your case. So it's a nice step, but beyond that, let's also get the minister to engage with the Nigerian community, gets to make his presence felt, and also look into leading by example. Because oftentimes we've heard, ministers making this statement, just like we see in the Nigerian government back here. And before you open your ears, you get to know that the minister has been, misappropriating the treasury of the embassy outside the shores of Nigeria. You get to find out allegations of, Nigerians abroad trying to get visas back, having to sort, having to bribe one official or the other. So when you take that abroad and then you're trying to tell Nigerians to leave a good image when you yourself have not been able to sort that decay within the system outside the shores of Nigeria, it's going to be counterproductive. Because when Nigerians see you are preaching a message of positive image, and then they still, weakness and experience those decay within the system, it's not going to help matters.
Of course, we see the fact that the ambassador, even the ways that some of our leaders, including our politicians, represent us in terms of, conversations, and they say Nigerians are quick to condemn rather than to commend, commend our efforts as a nation, commend the efforts of people, that are working around the clock one way or the other. So I think the ambassador is just telling us that we are, I think there's a balance, so however, whatever pictures we are painting of Nigeria to the rest of the world, that's what they're saying. Like you said, some of those checks that we experience at different airports when you travel all over the world is because, the narrative has constantly been negative with regards to how Nigerians can be in a certain way. But why not tell the stories of Nigerians that are upholding the flag of the nation and doing the best things? So I think it's imperative at this time, and I think this is a great conversation to have on a Monday morning, whilst we are going into all of the business activities, all of the productive activities for the week. Make sure that what you are doing, is collectively building the image of Nigeria within and outside the country, inside the country, and in the eyes of the diaspora. Because I think in the overall, this comes back to affect our foreign direct investment. It affects how much people want to come into the country and do business. People want to come and get citizenship in our country. Do these things have some gains? Yes, they do. So let's take advantage of some of these things as we go into a fresh business week, of course. We'll just see.
Well, of course, Nigerians are always going to strive. If there's anything that Nigerians want, they want to be treated rightly within and outside the shores of the country. And that goes to a lot of Nigerians who want is being required of them by the government. But of course, it's going to take a collaborative effort on both sides, particularly on the part of our leaders, because once our leaders get it right, it will make it a lot easier for the efforts of the average Nigerian to be seen. The leaders are the ones on top. Whatever they do speaks volume, speaks weight. So once they get it correct, then that of the average Nigerians will be appreciated. But there's been a lot of conversation since last week, owing to the fact that one of the ministers of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria happened that today. Some senior lawyers in Nigeria have said that the Minister of Arts and Culture, Hannatu Musawa, cannot be prosecuted for serving in the cabinet of the president while still a core member. The Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria had on Thursday last week accused the minister of being a core member, calling on the National Youth Service Corps to compel Musawa to focus on either her National Youth Service or the ministerial appointment. And in reaction, the NYSC accused Masawa of violating the NYSC Act. The NYSC spokesman, A.D. Megwa, explained that it was a breach of the NYSC Act for any corps member to pick up a government appointment until the 1 year of service was over. Now, these are very controversial issues that have been raised. When you go for service, the 1 year that you're supposed to serve government, corps members are posted to government establishment. Corps members are posted to outside government establishment. Yeah? So now, you're finding a serving corps member who has been given an appointment within the ranks and files of government. And you're telling us that that's in question. If you're telling us that the minister has breached the NYSC Act, how is it then that Nigerian graduates, when they're serving, are being sent to government establishment to work? What is the difference between having a government appointment while serving as an NYSC member and being sent as an NYSC member into government coffers to work?
Who is the government? What is the government? These are the questions we are asking, because at the end of the day, we just try to make mountains out of molehill. Culture minister is still serving. What she's being asked to do at the federal level is what? It's not still service. It is still service, and it is still to the nation. So why are we just imagine that her PPA was switched from whatever local government that she was given to Abuja and the Aso Rock or the likes, because at the end of the day, she's still going to be serving the country. The president thinks that she has the capacity and what it takes to serve in terms of culture, and tourism, the related industry. So why not allow her to get the job done? Why are you bringing all but I think the strongest conversation to have on this is the fact that at the end of the day, our policies, our constitutions are written in such a way that we are not evolving with the times. We are not evolving with the demands of the season. The National Youth Service Corps is 50 years old. When was the last time that constitution was reviewed? The Act of the NYSC. When was the last time that it was reviewed to fit into the contemporary needs of the Nigerian society? When was the last time that it was put, just like when you say that when you are 30, you can no longer go for NYSC. Have you factored in how many years people have to wait in school before they are graduating? Contemporary time issues in the educational sector, has that been reviewed to fit into a breach of a contract in their act? But then we will now need, it's taking us back to the kind of tussle between the PSC and the NPF. We will now need a court of jurisdiction to explain to us what that act actually does mean, and where the president and the presidency is contravening, the act of the NYSC. And at the end of the day, who has the highest hand and who will have the loudest talk? Is it the NYSC or the president at this time? But this is a no-brainer if you would ask anybody.
Well, it's crazy. It's crazy because first and foremost, you're looking at the work. The key word there, service, is being posted to government establishment, and sometimes even outside of government establishment. So why is this one extraordinary? Why is there so much so much force being made about these particular ones?
I think it's shocking to see that for the first time a corps member has been given that kind of responsibility. I think it comes from looking at the person through the eyes of being incapable of exerting that kind of duty. How is a corps member given that kind of responsibility in the country when we have all the other oldies that could be doing? I think part of the reasons for this cry out by whoever, all of those involved, is I would think it stems from that kind of
that conversation has been pushed forward by netizens, and of course, alongside with that conversation is also a question of how much alawi is she going to get, because we know the average corps member serving in government coffers, how much comes, even from the respective state government. But there's also been that question: how much is the Minister of Culture, going to get from the federal government? Is she going to be paid based on alawi structures as a serving minister, or she's going to be paid like the serving ministers across board? So this conversation
I would still say that is a no-brainer. She is going to be paid as a minister of the Federal Republic. She might as well relinquish her earnings, if she still pleases, to the NYC. She can tell the NYC she doesn't want to earn from them because maybe she's not serving in the direct PPA. But then again, it's a no-brainer. Musawa Hanatu is going to earn, as a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. what we should be looking out for is, why did the president think it was imperative within his,
Cabinet.
yeah, to have a core member? Because proper screening was done. Okay, first of all, let's even go back to screening and confirmation. Why wasn't this a case? When she was tendering her documents, didn't the National Assembly see that Hannatu Musawa was a serving core member for that matter? And why wasn't it thrown up as an issue? How then is it now an issue after she's been confirmed and given portfolio to serve in the federal cabinet at this time? So I just believe that the entire conversation is a no-brainer. It exposes one part of the president that we've continued to say, that he's a person who goes for talent. So it's more like he saw something in Hannatu Musawa and wants to entrust that sector into our hand to be able to do. Now, what we should be concentrating on is, what exactly did Mr. President see in Hannatu Musawa to take her on, although she's a serving core member? Not whether it contravenes an act or not, but like I said, I'm sure that this conversation is going to end with a panel trying to tell us, oh, section 20, subsection this, and the act of this and that doesn't really contravene, or it does. But at the end of the day, someone is going to overrule this.
Definitely, at the end of the day, we're still going to have conversations around it. But we do hope that either ways, the laws of Nigeria, as was moved by Patrick, will be reviewed across board. Because it's been long, it's been years, more than a decade since that was long done. And most of these laws, the review version, are not even out in this open space. In fact, as we sit, there is no legal document in this country that compiles all the extant laws, all the laws and regulations that has been signed into law in this country into one single document. There is no document that carries the reviewed laws of, days past. So it is time for us to walk in line with the trending conversation, in line with, what is obtainable across board. This is 2023, for crying out loud. We should be able to have a one-stop place where people get to see the different provisions of the different laws of Nigeria and get to read them up for themselves. If we are able to have that, as pushed forward by Barrister Dr. Patrick, one of the rep members from Akwa Ibom State, if we're able to have those kinds of legal documents, then people will not even have to be
just whip it up, over sentiment.
Exactly.
And yes.
So you just have the laws there, you have the provisions there. The ones that are obsolete and needs review can easily be seen, and then the National Assembly can go into the reviewing process and then look at what needs to be, retweaked here and there to make it, work in line with what is obtainable today. So it's really something that this country needs, because most times the legal expert will tell you this law is in existence, but there was another law. This law was in 2014, but there was another review in 2019.
So how come you are the only ones who know about the laws?
So, and then even within the legal profession, you still find some lawyers who are not even aware that, this law that existed in 2014 was reviewed in 2019 or 2020. And so you're having people interpret things based on whatever little information is available to them, and it doesn't speak well for the Nigerian society.
And then we just keep playing to sides. And I think another issue that we should even be looking at here, because if we are going to call out the National Youth Service Corps, Hannatu Musawa is 33 years old. The constitution of the National Youth Service Corps says once you're above 30, you cannot be serving. So how do we have a 33-year-old who is still serving, in the National Youth Service Corps? That's a question to answer if you really, really want to make an issue out of this. At the end of the day, none of it really matters, because we see people waive their ages to do all kinds of things in the country. We also see how maybe they were able to give the explanation of, oh, I should have graduated at the age of 28, but when I put 2-3 years of strike together, hence me appearing at 33. And you can also say, oh, for some reason my call-up letter kept on not appearing until I found myself at 33. So there are more issues, because these are the issues with the investigation. When you hound on one thing and you keep digging, you're going to find other things that come up on the table. You may find more serious pressing issues with regards to that case, other than the fact that you were trying to fight about a copper serving in the cabinet. But at the end of the day, really, I think the word for this case for me this morning is just that it's a no-brainer. Wow. It's a no-brainer. Let Hannatu Musawa, prove the president right in making that pick. And we must also say that this opens up the window for more youths to be involved in governance, for more youth to be entrusted with leadership roles in the country. at 33 and serving, how, how did you put yourself out so much so that the presidency evaluated you strong enough to be able to serve the entire nation? That's something that young persons should be looking at. And when we also look at, some of the conversations that the president has had, youth involvement in governance, women involvement in governance, does this, posture the president in good light before the people? Yes, it does. I think there are more stronger conversations that we have to look. So let's just see what Hannatu Misawa does with that sector in the 4 years that she's going to be minister. And we don't think that pulling her out of that position is the biggest thing now. Because at the end of the day, at 33, she would have just waved NYSC off, saying, she had gone above the age limit for NYC, so she wouldn't be serving. So there's more pertinent things to look at this morning, Francis.
Definitely, there are a lot to look at, and we do hope that either way, this works in the interest of the Nigerian society. Once Hannatu is able to prove herself, of course, everybody's going to be